So, how are you feeling going into the season?
Ecstatic. I know I'm very bullish every year, but I'm feeling pretty damn good, especially with a 12-team playoff.
I think every college analyst has said it that the 12-team playoff helps Penn State the most by far.
Yeah, I think we would have made it like at least 5 years, 5 of the last 10.
Yeah, and especially if like our one loss is Ohio State and they end up winning the Big Ten or having one loss, it's just like you know you kind of have to put us in if we don't have a complete blemish on
Yeah,
record.
yeah, 10-2 should definitely get in.
Well, welcome back to Whiteout Weekly, the 2024 season preview. As you just heard, hopes are high in the pie, apple sky hopes. And today, we Penn State nerds are going to briefly skim over the depth chart heading into the week 1 matchup against West Virginia, keying in on some position battles. We're going to pick our breakout candidates for the year on offense and defense. And lastly, our season predictions, which are, like Dave said, are always bullish and could leave us looking like clowns. But first, I have to ask the news going around probably only the US, but college football 25. How many hours have you accumulated on it so far?
I don't know that I feel comfortable sharing. It's been a high number. I know I don't typically have a lot of free time, but when I do, it has definitely been consumed with that new game. Heisman mode is hard as shit.
Dude,
It's definitely harder than I remember back in 2014, but they certainly nailed this one. It's worth the 10-year wait.
bro, they like so first of all, Heisman mode is impossible to throw the ball. It's insane. And then second of all, every time I can't return kicks because I just have to pull everyone back because I get roughing the kicker every single time.
Oh, I had to
Like
turn it off. I was sick of it.
it's a bug. It's so freaking annoying. So
Yeah.
my punt return game is just terrible. But I personally went hometown Philly,
Mhm.
did a temple rebuild,
Hey,
got first recruiting class wasn't that great. I kind of went for the stars on my first one. Didn't get that great. But we're building, step by step.
selling them on Planet the Link wasn't good enough to get you a 5-star.
Nah, not
Ah,
no. Well, I just went. Yeah, I just went to because they're like a 1-star program. So I was trying to get 4 stars and some sick guys in there, but did it completely wrong on my first attempt.
you just got to
Might have
build up
to,
your prestige. You'll get there.
might have to rewrite delete the file and start again. Who's your squad?
Well, I definitely had to do a dynasty with Penn State. I think I'm in year 4 at this point, so Drew Aller is long gone.
I was gonna do that, but like I just know all the players that are gonna come through, like the ones that are gonna start for basically 4 years. So
Yeah,
you're year 4, you said?
yeah, year 4.
So what are your bigger recruits? I'm sure the listeners care so much about this.
Oh, absolutely. I have a 5-star QB currently redshirting behind Bo at this point in his career. So
Go.
Bo's outshining the rest of the country. I think he's leading the Heisman race right now. And I think other than that, Singleton, Katron are all gone. So it's all the fun EA auto generated names.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are
So it's all about the recruiting. And then I got another one going with trying to get accustomed to the local flavor around here, so my rebuild's with Georgia State, playing at the old
Oh yeah,
Atlanta Braves Turner Field.
Davey boy is a Georgia boy now.
That's right, down here in the heart of SEC country.
So
Go
let's
Dogs.
get out of the fantasy or video game world, get into the real football world. Penn State 2024 season preview. We both are obviously ecstatic about this season, about this roster. The team captains were just named. Dom DeLuca, second time as a captain, linebacker slash special teams captain. Drew Aller, safety Kevin Winston Jr., linebacker Kobe King, center Nick Dawkins, and my favorite player, punter Riley Thompson. And I looked at that list, and there's one thing that stood out to me the most, and that was consistency and reliability. Out of all those names, maybe a Drew Aller, not so much. Consistency for sure with his touchdown and interception ratio, keeping care of the football. But those two things stood out: consistency, reliability.
I think it speaks volumes that Aller was named a captain as a junior. The way that Penn State rolls is it's typically not just, hey, the quarterback's always the team captain. No, you saw it with Clifford when he was in his final year as a team captain, just with being the voice of the locker room. But definitely think that's something that's definitely to note. The fact that Drew was named team captain as a junior, I think it speaks to the fact that he's likely taking on a bigger leadership role with the rest of the locker room. So I think that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. And I also have, if you couldn't notice, I don't have my Big Ten Betting Bonanza trophy that is currently being
Going to go right back here.
Shipped to Georgia. I have Bilbo Baggins up here, right there. And the philosophy behind that is step by step. And to honor that, I have a little prancing pony mug.
Hey,
Step by step.
love that.
So, as we go on, new offense coordinator, Andrew Kodanicki, former Kansas offensive coordinator, is in. Mike Yurchuk finally out. Hopefully, no more 2-yard bubble screens. No more inside zones for 2 yards. The quarterbacks are pretty much set in stone. Drew Aller entering his second year as the QB1. He had a solid year as his first year as QB1, throwing for 2,631 yards, just under 60% passing rate. Again, had a great 25-2 touchdown to interception ratio, but what everyone harped on, the deep ball, he averaged just 6.8 yards per attempt. And in some crucial games, he underperformed. He was under 50% completion rate against Ohio State and Ole Miss in the bowl game. Totaled 4 touchdowns, an interception, and had 2 fumbles. So, Dave, there's been talk about, obviously internet talk, Twitter talk about Bo, taking over if Aller, seriously underperforms. Do you have any stake in that, or are you just wiping that off completely?
No, I think it would have to be a pretty abysmal start to the year for Drew to have that type of conversation. I think he's clearly solidified himself as QB1. I think being named captain, again, like I mentioned, speaks volumes to where he's ascended to from a leadership standpoint. I think knowing or seeing Kodanicki's offense, if you watch any Kansas football, which I know a lot of folks probably haven't, but there is a reason he was named 24/7 Sports Offensive Coordinator of the Year. Didn't have the type of talent at Kansas that you get at Penn State, and was able to make do with dual quarterback system. Not necessarily that it was every drive, every down, but you had Jalen Daniels world-renowned talent, suffered a lot of injuries or has had a lot of injury concerns over the years, and then had Bean come in right behind him, and they were able to still produce explosive plays, but also while both those guys were healthy, being able to use the two of them. So I think he's big on getting the playmakers on the field, and Bo Perbula is a playmaker. He's shown that last year with his running ability and ability to find the seam and get some big chunk yardage. So I think you'll definitely see him on the field a lot, probably with Aller. But as for Aller himself, the knock has been on the deep ball. If you're a box score surfer, you would look at Aller's stats from last year and said, damn, he had a really good year. But then if you watch those key games, like most of the country outside of Penn State world tuned in for, Ohio State, Michigan, and then most recently the Peach Bowl with Ole Miss, it was some pretty subpar performance. So definitely looking for him to take another big step this year, and all eyes will be on that wide receiver room, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But definitely excited about the new offense.
He is on the Maxwell Player of the Year watch list, which I feel like 50% of college football players got named to some sort of watch list over the past couple of days. But do you think Aller's struggles came more because of Yurchich's scheme or because of Aller himself?
I think it was probably a combination of both. I mean, his first full year as starter, there's going to be bumps in the road. He's not going to. Most guys don't have it down pat, especially in the Big Ten, Power 5 conference. So I think I would definitely expect just some year-over-year growth just from having another year of maturity, another year or having that game experience under his belt. So expect to see some growth there. I think the scheme definitely played a role, and that's what I'm most excited about. A lot of people are most excited about Kotelnicki's scheme is all the pre-snap motion.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the play, it's got to be the right play, but that pre-snap motion alone can generate some explosive plays and scheme some guys open. And really, the basis of the offense is get the ball into your playmakers' hands, whatever that takes. So I think it should definitely help him a lot.
And Kotelnicki did so much with, let's be honest, not as much talent as Penn State's bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on quickly to the next depth chart area, the running backs. That's, again, set in stone. Probably the most underrated tandem in the league. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, who had 2 100-yard games last season. And I sent out a tweet just saying that they were the only tandem that had over 1,700 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns on less than 350 carries. And someone chirped me and was like, way to cherry pick a stat. And I was like, I'm just saying that they're in the elite company of every single back that's, top 5 with basically half the carries because they're splitting backfield. So it's like, all right, screw off. So I'm pumped for, hopefully, Singleton to return to that explosive form that we all knew. And Katron just to continue those jump cuts, shifty moves, open lanes, power football. He's going to be an NFL prospect's dream watching his tape.
Again, similar to Aller, I know those guys have had a couple more years under their belt in regards to steady playing time, steady production. But again, going back to Kotelnicki's offense and scheming guys open, I think probably the one that I'm looking to get the most out of this year would be Singleton. I think Katron has definitely proven where he's the reliable workhorse back, where he's going to be able to get that chunk yardage no matter what. Singleton definitely struggled, didn't quite take that leap last year that we saw in that freshman season. So I think would definitely expect Kotelnicki to have some plays and some wrinkles in the offense to be able to get him the ball in open space, because he shows that, he's shown where when he has the ball in his hands, he's got the ability to break one every single time. So definitely excited to see how these guys gel within the offense, and then a couple guys behind him. It's a deep room. The guys behind those two guys are definitely inexperienced,
It
but
really is.
everyone's heard of Quentin Martin, number one prospect in PA. I think it's going to be hard to keep him off the field this year. I think they've even mentioned that he's going to be one of the guys that they greenlight to burn that red shirt. And
He's
then
been
Cam Wallace from
killing it.
down here in Georgia, nothing but great things said about him over last couple years as he's grown into his body and developed. And he's kind of in a spot where he's just behind two premier running backs right now, but he could get some solid playing time, anywhere else around the Big Ten. So seeing what we can get out of him.
Now, probably the most talked about unit, the wide receivers. So we got Ohio State's big body transfer, Julian Fleming, who should be a reliable target for Drew Aller. Huge red zone target, which is big because we struggled in the red zone last year. Another name I see popping up this year is Liam Clifford. Could see action in the slot. Drew Aller in the interview said that he was so dependable. You can plug and play him pretty much anywhere. The smartest receiver on the team. Obviously, Sean Clifford's older bro or young bro.
Mm-hmm.
QB background. So, he has the route concepts down and had one drop last year. So I see him playing a bigger role than people expect in the wide receiving game this season. And then, other than that, Harrison Trey Wallace and Amari Evans are the juniors in the wide receiver room. Caden Saunders, who should start in the slot, is the lead sophomore with Tyler Johnson, Anthony Ivy as the other sophomores, and then Josiah Brown and Peter Gonzalez as a freshman. So the big question is, who do you see stepping up as wide receiver 2? I think I pretty much answered with mine. Well, slot. He beat 3, Liam Clifford for me. But who'd be your wide receiver 2? Who do you think is coming out of that group?
I think it's got to be Trey Wallace. He's gotten a ton of buzz. He had a ton of buzz last year and really showed out in that season opener against West Virginia.
Yeah.
Same opponent, where I believe he had probably about 7 or 8 catches that game, and then never really heard from him. Had some injuries, couldn't quite get himself right for the rest of the year, but the buzz has definitely returned through spring and fall camp. I think Kevin Winston Jr. just a couple of weeks ago really highlighted what he's seen from Trey Wallace in practice every single day, that he's putting in the work and he's determined to really take that next leap this year. So I think I'm really looking for a big year out of Trey Wallace this year.
Stay with me. Besides Liam Clifford, I'll talk more about him more, but Amari Evans, I see him having a big year just with that track speed in Nicky's offense. So moving on to the tight ends, we got Tyler Psycho T, one of my favorite Penn Staters of all time now, Warren, who's, I think, in for a humongous senior season, as well as Khalil Dinkins, who's going to be in his junior year. We'll probably see a lot of them in a 12 personnel. Maybe not with Nicky's offense. Probably run a lot of slot. But Dinkins more of the blocking tight end, gets some targets here and there, but Psycho T is just an animal. What else can you tell us about some of the younger? I know we have 2 younger tight ends who might get some playing time, but who knows?
Yeah, I think just to touch on Tyler Warren, I think you're exactly right. I think he's primed to have a huge year this year. He's kind of been stuck behind the last couple of years behind, again, some NFL guys. You got Theo Johnson this year or past year now with the New York Giants. And then you had Brenton Strange prior to that, now with the Jaguars. So he's just kind of been patiently waiting his turn, but also been producing while behind the curtains, waiting for his opportunity and some big moments. So definitely looking for a big year from him. I think Khalil Dinkins has shown that when he gets his opportunities, he comes through. He's had some goal line opportunities the last couple seasons. He's been able to prove that he's a big time target in the red zone. Jerry Cross, we haven't seen a lot from, but highly ready to recruit. So if he's sticking around in that room, you can only assume that he's been getting better. And then again, the young guys that are going to be hard to keep off the field. And there's a lot of position groups on this team, which has us and a lot of people excited about this year's Penn State team. Is there's a lot of position groups that have young talent that it's just hard to keep them off the field. You got Andrew Rapolier, who came in last year, continued to bulk up in the weight room. He was already pretty much D1 ready with his body type. So another year in the strength program would be huge. Luke Reynolds, true freshman from state of Connecticut, one of the top tight ends in the country. I think he ended up being a 5-star. Is world-renowned talent. And then another guy we don't have on this list is Joey Schlaffer, who came in last year with Rapolier. It's another big-time target. So
Yes.
it's a deep tight
Forgot
end
about
room.
him.
It's going to, again, going back to Kotelnicki and trying to get all these playmakers the ball, I think the tight end group is one where you could see a couple guys rotating in and out throughout games just to get the ball in their hands because I think they can be some big-time players.
Yeah, I could see a situation because I mean Tyler Warren's such a good blocker, but so is Dinkins.
Mm-hmm.
Where we put, I mean, if we're struggling to find a wide receiver to put Seiko T in the slot
Mm-hmm.
and then have one of those younger guys kind of step up as the tight end
For sure.
in a 13 personnel, that would be sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy idea, but another very talked about group, but I think in a really good way. The offensive line. They have been recruiting so hard to get a solid group of guys that can finally contend with the defensive line in the trenches of Michigan and Ohio State. And let's start with the left tackle solid combo of Drew Shelton, who's in his junior season. And I've just tweeted out, he's had 364 pass block snaps, 0 sacks allowed. And then backing him up is Jevon Bam Bam Williams, who redshirted last year. He was the top offensive lineman prospect in Pennsylvania. At left guard, it's going to be Ion Vaiga. He's a sophomore, redshirt. And then backing him up is JB Nelson, who is a critical senior that I think may play a vital swing interior lineman position with his experience if, God forbid, an injury does occur. And then team captain, Nick Dawkins, pumped about him. He looks locked and loaded to go. And backing him up, huge because just getting so much experience and so much, just how to be a college student athlete. Cooper Cousins, true freshman, who will be learning behind Dawkins. Right guard Sal Wormley, he's as solid as it gets in the run game, just an absolute beast of an offensive lineman. Again, Outland Trophy watch list. And finally, right tackle, Nolan Rucci, the senior transfer from Wisconsin, 6'8", 305 pounds. And behind him, there are 2 redshirt freshmen, Anthony Donka, who got snaps last season in the bowl game at right tackle. And he could maybe be a swing tackle, in case, again, God forbid, an injury occurs, just like JB Nelson. And behind him, Chimdi Ono. Anyone I forgot in that group? Anyone you want to add? And who stands out in that group for you?
No, I think those guys are definitely all in play. I think the only other one would be Chimdi Ono. Or sorry, you did mention him. Yeah, so I think we got them all covered. There's probably some other guys that we're forgetting, but it's like you mentioned, it's a deep group. The coaching staff, Phil Troutwine, who's gotten a lot of flack over the years of not being able to build out his recruiting base and be able to create a pipeline of talent. We're in the midst of it right now, where we've sent numerous guys to the NFL, even as recent as last year. I mean, you got a group coming in this year after losing top 10 pick in Olu Fashanu, loss. I know he had his ups and downs, but ultimately he's getting his shot in the NFL. Caden Wallace. Previous to that, you had Rasheed Walker. Guys who've been taking that leap to the next level, and I think you got plenty of guys here that have that same opportunity. I'm really excited about Cooper Cousins. I know Nick Dawkins going to have a really big year as the team captain, but Cooper Cousins, talk about buzz. Like I mentioned with Trey Wallace, Cooper Cousins is that to the 10th level. I mean, he was just recently named to the preseason true freshman All America team, which as an offensive lineman,
Oh,
you don't hear about that at Penn State too often. You don't necessarily have offensive linemen that are ready to produce as a true freshman. But I believe he was the first commit in that recruiting class, in his true freshman class way back. And he's showing out ever since he's gotten to campus. And I think he's another guy, when you talk about being hard to keep off the field, they're going to find ways to get Cooper Cousins in this year because he's that type of an impact offensive lineman.
yeah, this is. I think I might have said this last year, but it's such a great mix of veteran and underclassmen that I think this is set to become, for the first time in a long time, one of the top units just overall for this
Mm-hmm.
team in the upcoming years. Just given the talent of Alex Birchmeyer, who we didn't even mention, the other top offensive line prospect from Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
You got Bam Bam Williams coming in, Cooper Cousins, like you mentioned. Two redshirt freshmen at tackle. It's just it's looking to be a solid offensive line unit, and I'm so pumped about that. I just hope it pans out, crossing both my fingers. So let's move on quickly to the defense. Again, new defensive coordinator. Shout out to Manny Diaz and what he was able to do with that Penn State defense. I mean, it was just incredible. He pretty much coined the nickname the faceless defense, the way he lined up over the ball. It was just hats to the ball all over the field. It was insane. But he's being replaced by Tom Allen, the former Indiana head coach, and he will also be acting as the linebacker coach. So the big news on defense, the star Abdul Carter switching to defensive end, which I think says a lot about the development and what not only Abdul and the players, but the coaches think about Tony Rojas, who's now going to be starting at linebacker as a sophomore. And then just think about Abdul Carter and then deny Dennis Sutton on the other side is just scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the cool thing here too, or the scary thing, is the caveat that's been mentioned by the coaching staff is that Abdul is still going to play in some spots or either some games at linebacker. So having that flexibility where he has the potential to be, and granted it's his first year in the position at the Power 5 level, but definitely has an opportunity to be an All American at defensive end. but also have an All-American type talent at linebacker where, as an offense, you don't know where the hell this guy's going to be lining up, and it could totally depend on the matchup, whether it's an in-game adjustment or from a week-to-week standpoint. I think that's a scary, scary thought, but can't wait to see this in action. I think he's got Chop Robinson type moves, and I know that's a big statement, but Abdul is just a special player. You saw it in his very first snap or first series in that Purdue game on the road as a true freshman, where he got ejected. I think on
Yeah.
his first career tackle for helmet to helmet, and right
Yeah.
then you knew this guy can bring it.
And then I think Auburn, he forced the fumble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, just absolute beast. And then house notes, Jimmy Lions, excuse from the team, but we are still just absolutely stacked at edge. Zariah Fisher, Amin Vanover, Smith Vilbert, going to get more reps deep there with young players. Moving into the interior, a lot of upperclassmen, Devon J. Thomas, Sr., and Zane Durant, Jr., going to get a lot of reps, as well as Hakeem Beamon and Kozai Izzard, who are senior rotational players who are definitely going to get in there and add some experience. But keep an eye on number 58, Caleb Artis, redshirt sophomore. And so right now, our defensive line, Abdul Carter denied Dennis Sutton, backed up by Zariah Fisher, Amin Vanover. At D tackle, we have Devon and Zane, backed up by Hakeem and Keziah. That is some monsters in the trenches right there.
Mm-hmm. Always
Besides,
great to have that experience in the middle too. So Devon J. Thomas, formerly Devon Elise, coming back. Hakeem Beamon coming back. Obviously got Zane Durant, like you mentioned, who's been on the field since he was a true freshman, has only gotten better and stronger. So to be able to have that combination of talent and also experience is going to again prove dividends for this group and prove to be, I think, a strength of the defense again.
and then so as Abdul switches to edge rusher, we now have a not new, two returning, but a new linebacker, Tony Rojas, and then a captain, Dom DeLuca, and then probably my pick for most underrated Penn State player, Kobe King, at linebacker. Um, what more can you tell us about the linebacker group? I know. Did I hear that Dakari Nelson might be transitioning to linebacker as well?
Yeah, actually came about within the last couple days. He's been a safety since he came on board at Penn State. Certainly has the size and the length to be able to compete at the linebacker spot at 6'3", and I believe he's up to somewhere around about 220, maybe 225 now, as
All
he's
right.
spent the last couple of years in the strength program. But ultimately, he spent spring ball, winter workout, spring ball, fall camp with the safeties, and then was spotted during team picture day with the linebacking group. And word has quickly spread that he's been getting some action at the linebacker spot and seems to be making that transition, which I think is definitely going to add depth here if he can transition quickly and make that impact. Because I think if you look at the defense, if you were to identify a weak spot, although there's some great talent there, we're expecting big things from Rojas. Kobe King has been a stalwart, Don DeLuca, team captain. But behind that, I think there's definitely talent, but it's unproven talent. So if one of those guys, God forbid, were to go down, I think this is probably, and it's hard to say with Penn State, being LBU, but with having that unproven talent, I think that's probably the biggest question mark. If you were to spot one out on this defense, would be at that linebacker spot, just with the lack of experience.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And in terms of pass coverage, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's got to be a big factor in terms of the linebacker play. But I I just love the fact that Tony Rojas is going to get more reps. I mean,
Hmm.
he saw 7 in the Maryland game
Hmm.
and had that forced fumble, the interception, touchdown, or no, just interception.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the bowl game, 20 snaps, had 4 tackles, an assist, and 2 stops, which are basically tackles for loss. So I'm super pumped about him. Definitely excited to see what he has to do. Speed, sideline to sideline speed. Hopefully, he can be the coverage guy if Kobe King or Dom DeLuca can't step up. But speaking of coverage, let's go to the defensive backs, which I have to be honest, Dave, I'm a little worried about. We have a lot to replace. Keelan King gone. Daquan Hardy, the literal college football 25 video game player, gone and spoiled with punt returns with him. And then one of the most, I think, underrated cornerbacks last year was Johnny Dixon, gone. But we did bring in some newcomers with a lot of talent, and we are developing some homegrown talent. Cam Miller's one name that stands out to me, Elliot Washington, and potentially Zaki Wheatley, depending on how they Tom Allen wants to use him.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot to replace. I think what I'm excited about is the infusion of the SEC talent at the cornerback spot. So
Hmm.
you got AJ Harris, 5-star recruit, was formerly recruited by Penn State, and that's really been the theme of who we've been able to get through the transfer portal is guys that the coaching staff's been able to maintain the relationship with not only the player but the families too to make that decision a little bit easier. But AJ Harris, 5-star high school recruit, got some game action last year in the SEC, the top tier program with Georgia. Could very likely be that number one corner. You know, it's really between him and Cam Miller at this point, but he's definitely shown his potential and what his ability through camp. You got Jalen Kimber coming over from Florida. Again, guy looking for an opportunity to get some more playing time. SEC talent. Definitely can't shy away from that. And then the big name coming out of camp, and James Franklin has mentioned a couple times at this point, has been Aldavian Collins, who came over from Mississippi State. Is now this will be year 2 for him in the program, but
A lot
Franklin,
of
as of
SEC
recently,
guys there.
yeah,
Huh.
Franklin, as of recently, saying he may be the most improved guy on the roster. So, and Nick goes by the nickname AC, or that's what he's called. Very cool nickname. So, looking
I
for
love
potentially
it.
some big things from him. And then, like you mentioned, Elliot Washington, top rated recruit at the cornerback spot. You got Zion Tracy in there as well, who got some exposure in that Peach Bowl for good, bad, or indifferent against Ole Miss. No, they got kind of thrown to the wolves with the opt outs, but
Mm.
nonetheless, good experience and looking to hopefully take that into this year and provide some depth.
So in terms of slot corner, I'm
Mhm.
assuming AJ will be outside, Cam Miller outside, slot corner. Who is currently in the lead in your mind? Or will it be like a mix of guys?
I think AJ is definitely on the outside. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how Tom Allen and Terry Smith kind of gel and work this out. I think I wouldn't rule it out that Cam could find his way into the slot and potentially see Jalen Kimber or AC on the outside. I think we'll find out a lot in that week 1 matchup against West Virginia, probably the first couple weeks of the year. Tom Allen, the very cool thing about his defense too is to see how he utilizes what he called the lion position within the defense is kind of that hybrid, secondary linebacker spot, kind of similar to Manny Diaz. So it'd be interesting to see how that gets utilized. But I think AJ is probably a foregone conclusion to be one of the starters. But think it's probably between Cam Miller or Kimber for that nickel spot.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to call it the rover, but the line
Mm-hmm.
spot. All right, so safety, obviously Kevin Owens Jr. is going to be starting. Zakee Wheatley, is he going to be starting at free safety or Jalen Reed?
I think those are probably. I think it's really between Zakee and Jalen. So I think either way, those guys are going to get on the field.
Mm.
It's just kind of the formality of who's going to start. But I think as of right now, I'd probably throw Zakee in there as the starter. We'll see what comes about
Could
for the.
Jalen be the line spot?
I think he could,
That
especially
could,
with
yeah,
his in game
I like that a
experience.
lot.
Uh, Funny note too, I think it's a funny story that he is not in college football 25. Speaking of Jalen Reed, and his explanation was he just forgot to do the paperwork that was required. So if he's playing as Penn State, he's an AI generated player, but he's you'll see his true self making some big time plays, and then
Wait, what's his AI name?
come to think of it, I can't even remember it now.
That's hilarious.
I have to go back and get it, but
It's
he'll
like, oh,
definitely make
that
some
was
big
stupid.
plays. And Tyrese Mills, so Penn State, you've seen year over year go the Lackawanna JUCO route. He's been in the program for a couple of years now. Yeah, Jaquan Brisker, Tig Brown, go that route. So I've been continuing to hear a lot of good things about Tyrese Mills. So I think he could definitely be a candidate for that Lion spot too, as he's got some size and could be that hybrid type guy.
Anyone from Lackawanna, I will take.
Mm-hmm.
So last two, punter, Riley Thompson, captain, my favorite player, special teams weapon is the Nittany Lions key to flipping the field. So
Mm-hmm.
last year he was PFF 7th overall graded punter in all of the nation, ninth in the nation in net punt yards with 43.2, and the second lowest yards per return in the Big Ten. Also, shout out the third phase special teams there. Kicker wise, who are you looking at? Who's going to be knocking in PATs and hopefully over 40-yard field goals?
So we've seen the last couple of years where, again, Franklin and the staff, they like to have a competition at the kicker spot, have multiple guys, and they like to use statistics all throughout camp and track their progress to ultimately make the decision. But right now it's between Sanders Sahadak, who's been in the program last couple of years, highly rated kicking prospect, hasn't quite been able to get on the field, has been a little bit shaky at times when he has gotten his moments. But it's really between him and Chase Meyer, the transfer coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be between those two guys. You got obviously Gabriel Nuosu, big, the
Yeah,
stalwart on the kickoffs to
love him.
continue to drive those beautiful touchbacks. But be interesting to see who ends up getting started on a kicker, whether it be Sahadak or Meyer.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's good to have multiple kickers, but I'd rather have kind of like a stalwart, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this guy's knocking it in from wherever. But regardless, any news, I haven't heard anything about. Um, Again, I mentioned we were spoiled last year with Daquan Hardy. I think he should have gotten more ops at returning punts, but have you heard anything about the kick? And I mean, Singleton will be back there for kick returns, but punt return this year.
I'd be hard pressed to say it won't be Caden Saunders. I think definitely
Mhm.
looking for Caden to have a big impact on the field on the offensive side of the ball. But with his speed and as he's continued to again grow into his body, being in that strength program for multiple years now, I think he should be in a spot to be able to be not just the proclaimed starter punt returner, but also an impact player at the punt return spot. He's shown some flashes, not quite to the extent of what we saw from Hardy or what we were spoiled with in years past, but I think Saunders is likely going to be the nod here unless one of the speedy freshmen or one of those running backs ends up taking him out.
Gotcha. All right. before we move on to our breakout offensive candidates of the year, do you need to take a piss break or are you good to go?
Good to go, baby.
Alrighty. Why don't you start us out?
All right, so dark horse offensive candidate. I think there's a lot of different places you could go here. I think you
Ton,
got a lot of guys
ton,
that are, what's that?
tons of places.
Tons of places.
I think I
Take your
changed my answer 4 times.
yeah, I know. I think
I'll
as I was going through, I kind of did and undid
try to
it
remember the other.
probably about 4 or 5 times. So we talk about Psycho T, Tyler Warren, the solidified starter at tight end. You got guys behind him who've been in the program. I just really think that Luke Reynolds is going to be, it's going to be really hard to keep him off the field. So even as a true freshman, being behind guys that have been able to produce already at the Big Ten level, I think he's a guy that's going to flash early and often, and Kotelnicki and this staff is just going to have to get him on the field because I think he's that damn good. So I'm looking for Luke Reynolds to not only burn that red shirt, but leave it in the dust and put up some numbers this year.
Yeah, his high school tape is out of control. Like
Mm-hmm.
just go to Huddle, watch some of his highlights. They're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely insane. For me, so my other two were Caden Saunders, Trey Wallace, but I figured they were, you know, kind of chalk. And
Mm-hmm.
then my other one was Khalil Dinkins, but I landed on Amari Evans. So a lot of players and coaches are talking about great practice after great practice after great practice that he's had, specifically his explosiveness down the field. And as we're talking about Drew Aller passing the ball downfield, that comes to mind. And Drew Aller mentioned that he's taking that next step in his progression. He's 6 foot 190. Um, Tons of contested catches during practice. There's that one recent video that was on Twitter of him just mossing someone on the sidelines for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He sort of came on at the end of last season. Had 4 targets for 4 catches, 90 yards, no drops, 1 catch in traffic, and had that 6-yard grab against Michigan State to help set the touchdown. And my favorite is when College Football 25 released, he tweeted at them because of his speed. It was lower than he thought. He
Mm-hmm.
posted some 40 times, I guess, that Penn State ran during, like, I guess, practice or whenever.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran a 4.31.
Nice.
Second was Nick Singleton, who ran a 4.35. And right behind him was Zion Tracy, who ran a 4.36. So love that he's, already putting bulletin board material up, being like, all right, you think I'm that? I'm about to prove everyone wrong and show that I'm about to be the number 2 wide receiver on this team. Going defensively, we did mention this name before. Um, so Dave, why don't you go ahead and give us your breakout defensive candidate?
Yeah, I think based on how we've talked him up and what, again, the word of the day, that what the buzz has been. Don't know if you can necessarily call him a dark horse, but I'm rolling with it anyway. I so damn excited about Tony Rojas, man. I think he is going to have a
Same,
stellar
same.
year. I've been stoked about him since the recruiting process. One of the top prospects in the state of Virginia. Did it on both sides of the ball. He's only gotten bigger, only gotten stronger. Proved that he was able to produce as a true freshman last year. Like you mentioned, the bowl game, he had the big game against Maryland. Has stood out all through winter workouts, spring ball, fall camp. the solidified starter at linebacker, and I think he is primed to have a monster year and not just come on to the scene, but I think the national scene as well. I think I'm really excited about Tony Rojas, if you can't tell.
Yeah, he won. Him and Dom DeLuca, I think, won pretty much every single linebacker winner workout
Mm-hmm.
award. I'm gonna go to the trenches. My favorite spot, Zane Durant. So background on him, played B tackle, which is so tough as a true freshman going up, against guards who are just grown men so much bigger than you and completely held his own. Last season had 5.5 sacks, tied or 5.5, sorry, tackles for loss, tied for fifth with Abdul Carter. He only put up 2 sacks, but was so sound against the run. And with Abdul and DDS on the outside, I think he's going to have a ton of one-on-one pass rushing opportunities, which is, I think, where he excels. So I'm expecting huge things from Mr. Durantula. Again, taking another nickname from Kevin Durant, who passes on the best nicknames of all time.
Yeah,
The servant will never like the servant, Durantula, the Slim Reaper. You pick the servant? Come on. I'm
easy
going to
money
say it every.
sniper now. I think he's on the easy money sniper now. So I think Durantula is up for grabs.
I like Easy Money Sniper, but I
Mm.
still just can't respect the passing of so many cool nicknames. It's out of control. All right. Lastly, to wrap this up, let's go over our overinflated schedule
Mhm.
predictions. So we'll start with week 1, August 31st at West Virginia on the road. The renewal of the West Virginia Penn State series. This time we have to face them in Morgantown for round 2. What do you think happens there, Dave?
I think it's a tough opening matchup. Not an easy place to play. I think the crowd's going to be hyped up. They got returning quarterback who, and really not just for Garrett Green, but as a team, they improved mightily down the stretch since that week 1 matchup against us last year. But I think the hype is too real for Penn State. It's got to be to come out and not get that week 1 dub would be an absolute gut wrench. So I think the Lions definitely come out on top in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, even last year, Garrett Green kind of took me aback. I was like, "Who's this kid
Mm-hmm.
running all over us, throwing across his body, mobile dead eye?" So I think that will be a tough game. But yeah, I don't know. New coaching staff, but I think there's too much experience. The boys are going to get it done that week.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go week 2, Bowling Green win. Week 3 bye. After that, after a bye, we're facing Kent State at home win.
Dub.
Illinois at home win. And then we go to the Gauntlet. October 12th at USC. Last time I faced them was in the 2017 Rose Bowl, right?
I think it's actually UCLA before them, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Sorry, UCLA. Our first meeting with them since 1968.
Damn.
Believe it or not. So yeah, not much, not much history there. But is Chip Kelly still coaching there?
Now Chip Kelly is the OC at Ohio State. So it's
Oh, and Ohio State. Fuck
yeah,
me more.
I know, right? It's I
Screw
think
that guy, dude. I
UCLA
hate him.
is. I know, I hate his guts. Deshaun Foster, former Letterman, former Carolina Panther running back, great.
Probably shouldn't do that, but all right. So at home, UCLA. I'm gonna count that as a win.
I think it's a dub. I think UCLA, new
First year
coaching
head coach
staff. I like their
at Penn
quarterback,
State.
Barber. They got a good wide receiver group, but I think making that first East Coast road trip to the
True.
Penn State
I
crowd
forgot about the road trips.
would be something different. Not used to it, so I think year one, Penn State gets this.
Yeah, and that's where road trips come into play at USC, like I just mentioned. Yeah, 2017 Rose Bowl, last time we met. That's gonna be a tough one. That is gonna be a tough game. I could honestly see that going either way, to be honest. The
I think
fan
this one,
obviously fan in me obviously says win, but just on the road, having that travel, it could be a tight game. That's all I'll say.
yeah, this is these
Look at
next
the
two are
spread
definitely.
beforehand.
It's a tough stretch. I think this one.
Circling that one right now.
Yeah, I think this could be a trip up at USC.
You're in loss.
I'm going loss.
All right. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1. Then we got a bye week at Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
We lead the series against the Badgers 11-9 and covered the last 5. That's pretty fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to win there.
Tough place to play, Camp Randall, but I don't think Luke Fickle's got that team quite where he needs it to be. So I think Penn State dub.
Covered the last 5. That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Win. All right. 6-1. Then the big one,
Mm. Dun dun dun.
Ohio State at home. Last year just still haunts me. I mean, the last 2 years, it's been
Last 7.
well, true, very true. But
Other than that blocked
specifically, the
field goal,
last
man.
2 years is like, come on, like JT Tuamaloda just taking over in 5 plays, and then last year a series away,
Mm-hmm.
from winning that game.
Okay.
So I think, again, that's my favorite video of all time. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. I mean, they beat it 7 times, but this close, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, especially at home. I'm going to win on that one.
Oh,
I'm going to win on that one. It's hard to
love
beat a team 3 times, Gabe.
it. I love our chances this year. I love our team. I love what this team will do. I still don't feel that our roster is quite at the level or above Ohio State's quite yet. So I think this one, unfortunately, is a loss again.
All right. Circling that. I'm already penciling that in for Big Ten Better Bonanza. You
Mm-hmm.
have to take Ohio State spread. I'd take Penn State spread. So I'm 6-1. You're 6-2. Washington, the whiteout game.
Dub.
Same at Purdue.
Dub.
I have that as well. At Minnesota, they're coming off a bye, by the way.
I think it's a dub. And also, I know that Ohio State matchup obviously is going to be a tough one. But if this team's going to be primed for a playoff berth, I think that last three, that you had the gauntlet and then that last three stretch, it's really where you're hoping that the offense has fully kicked it into gear and they're getting revved up and ready to go for a playoff run.
That could be a tricky one. After at Purdue going
Mm-hmm.
at Minnesota, them coming off a bye, I feel like they could be kind of hyped up. Lastly, the quote unquote rivalry game, the handshake game, as I would like it to be called. Maryland at home. Dub.
Dub.
All right. So I got us going 10-1.
11-1, right?
11-1, yeah.
Mm.
And then you got us 10-2.
10-2.
So if my calculations are right, we would probably it depends on USC or in Michigan for us to get to the Big Ten title.
Well, the beauty of it is it's no more divisions.
Yeah, for the top
Mm-hmm.
two. So it would depend on their conference and Oregon, I would assume. But at you 10-2, we're not making conference title most likely with
I think
loss
probably at
to
large playoff berth, you're looking at 10-2.
already. Yeah, I'm hoping we make that Big Ten championship game. And in terms, so I was thinking about this in terms of so we got a lot of juniors on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Pribula as a backup, Singleton and Allen. A lot of young receivers. As we said, our offensive line is stacked for next year. We got some stud linebackers, Tony Rojas, we talked about a lot. I believe AJ Harris is a sophomore, redshirt
Mm-hmm.
sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
So defensive backs were looking good. What would be a successful year in your eyes?
I mean, obviously, you're hitting at like the player growth and development and being primed for multiple runs here, but I think it's got to start with making the playoff. I know we obviously won a Big Ten title, want to be able to get to the Big Ten championship, but when you're looking at the 14 format, everyone knows, and all the media talk has been if anyone would benefit from a 12-team playoff, it would be Penn State. The opportunity's here now, and this fan base is hungry for more. We want more than 10-2. 10-2 is what we've got. 10-2 should net you a playoff berth, and it's there for the taking. So we got to make sure that we get it this year. So to me, it's playoff or bust.
Now, is it just making the playoff or winning that playoff game to get into the round two?
I think obviously would love want to get that first one, but I think first step is getting in the door to be able to provide or prove that hey, you can get over that hump. Because I think even if I look at it, with Franklin not being able to win the big games, I think even if I look at it this year, even if we beat Ohio State but were to trip up elsewhere and miss the playoff, I think that's still a failure for this year. So to beat Ohio State and make the playoff, that's phenomenal. But I think definitely getting into the playoff has got to be the mindset, got to be the goal.
Yeah, that's. I was gonna be the Debbie Downer here, but that's my mindset going into this year is make the playoff. If we win, fantastic, but we are loaded up for next year, and I'm more thinking of next year, the run that we can potentially make. I know that's stupid to do in the 2024 preview, but I think the goal is to make college football playoff. Hopefully, get a team, a matchup that we can possibly get into the final, get into the next round.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, yeah, this is the year to get into the college football playoff, get experience, and then next year is the run for sure.
You know what? I take mine back. I want to get in the playoff and get a dub. I'm not satisfied with just getting in. I want a dub, baby. I don't want to just taste
Yeah,
it.
it depends on the matchup. I mean, if we get fucked, like, you know, if we get like a 10 seed or an 11 seed or something like that, and have to face like, you know, a decent Power Five opponent, that would
Mm-hmm.
kind of suck. But yeah, obviously I want the dub.
The
But
December whiteout
it,
sounds like pure bliss. Give me that playoff home game, baby.
that yeah, that I didn't even think about that. That would be electric.
Mm.
Now that I think about it, if we get a home game in the college football playoff, we're winning that game.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a night game, if
Mm-hmm.
it's a night game.
Fox will
Um,
probably make it a new game.
so yeah, well, guess what? Our expectations just changed from making the playoffs to winning a playoff game. Hopefully, getting home field advantage, and we'll see what happens. We'll clip this, save it for. Actually have it written down, so we'll come back to it at the end of the season. Hopefully, not with our tail between our legs.
Mm-mm.
And thank you all if you tuned in this far. Thank you so much. If you could toss a subscribe on YouTube, shoot us a rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. We really appreciate you tuning in this far. As always, we cannot thank you guys enough for the support on the shop, on social media, just on everything. We absolutely love doing this. We can go another probably hour talking about Penn State football, and it's just, a blessing that two alumni get to talk about one of the things that they're really passionate about. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Year 4, baby. Here we go.
Let's go looking for a big year, and we'll be back next week for the big old West Virginia round 2 matchup in Morgantown, baby.
Let's go.